great panel with Megan and Brock to be following. To those that I didn't meet last night, I'm Rachel Conlan. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Binance. And it's a real pleasure today to be discussing a topic that, while as a leader in marketing, you wouldn't think I would be passionate about, but it influences my business in every aspect. So it's something that is critical for us all to be clear on, which is that of blockchain regulation and custody dynamics. As Megan mentioned earlier, we're the largest exchange by users, but we're also the largest exchange by volume. And obviously, we're deeply engaged in discussions around the world with regulators, around trust, around compliance, and what this means not just for the next wave of retail users, but also for the next wave of institutional users. So thanks to the Ibiza Tech Forum, we have a remarkable list of leaders in the space of custody. And I'd just like to take a couple of minutes to let each of them introduce themselves and share a little bit more about their role in their company.
So I'm Sebastian Badault. I lead enterprise sales at Ledger. So Ledger is the global leader in basically self-custody. So we do it on the consumer side and we do it on the enterprise side as well. We've been around for 10 years. We actually celebrated our 10-year anniversary last year. So we're like an OG in the crypto space. We sold over 8 million wallets and we hold 20%, or we secure 20% of the world's crypto. Which is a pretty impressive number. So it's about I guess, current market cap about $400 billion. And we just launched new hardware last year to make it more useful and more easy to really, because we feel that the crypto adoption will come through having new and more ease of use for new users. That's what we are really focused on. So self-custody and helping the next 100 million people get into crypto.
Hi everyone. I'm Pepe Fernandez. I'm head of innovation in Prosegur. Prosegur is a very big company, 29 countries, 5 billion revenue. It's a very big company with residential alarms, physical security, cash and transit, a lot of traditional businesses. But a couple of crazy guys started in 2020 with the idea that if we do custody of physical assets like gold, like cash, like other physical assets, why not go for the digital assets, right? So that's that crazy idea with the help of Amazon Web Services and so, the contest. Well, we started Prosegur Crypto. I'm the chairman of Prosegur Crypto too. It's a very tough path to hear, but we based our custody, we do only institutional custody, regulated countries only. We go for financial institutions, and we have 4 bunkers today, physical bunkers, inside our Prosegur facilities. We believe that physical security on top of logical security has a differential solution for institutions, perhaps not perceived today, but in the future, we are pretty sure that financial institutions will put custody where it should be.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the organization to invite me. I'm Cristina Carrascosa. I'm managing partner of 8821. We don't do vodka. We're lawyers. I think we may need vodka at the end of this year.
Yeah.
But 8821 is a fintech specialized law firm. I'm a lawyer and I'm in crypto since 2014. I've worked since then for the European Commission drafting MiCA, which is this year's big main character.
Keeping a lot of us up at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've also worked, I'm Spanish, and I've worked with the Spanish government amending the securities law, which was the first securities law in Europe that enabled companies to tokenize their shares, financial instruments. And this year, we're trying to foster tokenization, institutional clients coming into crypto, and everything done legal by design, which is like our motto. And I think I'm the only lawyer in this panel, so I'm the boring one.
Everyone needs a lawyer in crypto. That's one thing we've all learned.
Hi everyone, I'm Shirly. I'm Chief of Growth at Partisia. I've been in the blockchain space past 7-8 years, building out protocols. And Partisia is first and foremost a cryptography company. We've been around since 80s. One of our co-founders, Ivan Damgard, has been behind the invention of SHA-1, SHA-2 algorithm, Merkle-Damgard hash function. And in a nutshell, what we do is we do for data what Bitcoin did for money. That also applies for key management. So something that we're really pioneers in is multi-party computation and MPC. We also founded the first MPC wallet, cross-chain wallet, Sepior, which got acquired by Blockdaemon in 2022. And now, over 37 years of research and development, we're applying it on practical use cases. We're building out different solutions for enterprises and NGOs and governments, and we see more and more the technology being adopted for practical use cases, also in the DID, in key management, encryption, decryption technologies, and we also have a on-chain advanced custody solution for custodians to utilize, or even DID service providers, because it doesn't come only to financial funds, but also who gets to access your confidential data. So yeah, excited to be here.
Fantastic. Some credentials across the floor. Let's kick off. Let's dive into this. I'd love just to start with the global regulatory landscape. I think we've all witnessed in this room firsthand how over the course of the last year, those shifts in regulatory dynamics have influenced everything from user confidence, adoption, and also innovation. We're seeing so many new entrants into the space. Sebastian, you have a very global purview. You're active in many markets. Like, what's your perspective on regulatory sentiment and confidence at the moment? And how are you seeing it vary? Are you seeing fragmentation or unification?
I mean, there's definitely fragmentation, and what's interesting is that there's always shifts happening, right? So if we had this conversation a year ago, I would have told you that a lot of what we're doing or looking at is, environments where we feel regulation is going to be, helping our business. It's going to be, UAE, it's going to be Southeast Asia, but with the election that happened in November, a lot of the shift has been happening now towards the US. We're super happy, so I'm sure we're going to be talking about it some more, but we feel that Europe, obviously having MiCA, we were the first ones to have regulation, and that was a good thing. And we're really happy that regulation exists, because we know that businesses need to have clarity as to what they can and cannot do to be able to grow and develop. But as usual, there's always something between inspiration and execution. On the execution front, I think we're seeing some tougher things happening, knowing that, like the original paper, which was, 60 pages, is now like 2,000. So that makes it a little bit complicated to navigate. And I think we're in Europe, I'm European, so I can say this. It's very interesting to see the difference between, the European view and the American view. You need regulation, but as long as it doesn't stifle innovation. In the US, maybe it's kind of like, move fast, break things. It's probably not the right way, but our way of saying, like, let's regulate and let's do 2,000 isn't the right way either. So there's got to be a middle ground somewhere. And what I'm hoping for the crypto space, that we find this middle ground between, what exists here, what's being built out in the US, and really just to help innovation while protecting, customers and institutions. I think that's what we want to see.
Thanks, Sebastian. And Pepe, Sebastian's touched on MiCA and these strong signals we're seeing in the US of recent. How is this changing how you approach institutional custody and your growth strategies as well as a business?
Let me explain how do we think that we have to approach to our solution. We say three things, right? First is the product. The technology is something that you usually buy, and build on top of. Second is governance. It's something that you buy internally to protect the assets in terms of processes. And third is regulation. And we thought this in this order. We were wrong. It's the way around. Without regulation, you can't start this thing. You can't start. So we are in apnea, waiting for the business to blow. Yep. This is the thing. MiCA has how many pages? About 236.
Yes, 300, I would say.
Argentinian regulation is 30 pages. And it's even better because it's very concise and very they go to the point. It's very, very, very. They learned by the faults of the MiCA excess of implementation, a lot of definitions. There are some things on MiCA regulations that start with the idea that they don't understand very well how the market is going to be in the future. But anyway, MiCA is here. We are going to be MiCA compliant for sure. And we expect that our solution is going to be accepted in the financial market all over Europe.
Cristina, you sit in this really interesting kind of translator role, you know, consulting for companies and working with the regulators. Obviously, all of us have a lot of questions about MiCA. I've spent a long amount of hours on the subject. I suppose, how actionable do you think the regulation is, and are we ready as you know, European and Spanish companies to implement it as quickly as we need to? You know,
So
it's
those
pending.
questions, I think, have different answers. For me, MiCA is a very actionable regulation in the sense that if we think how MiCA was actually built, it was this way. In 2018, the European Commission brought up about 50 different profiles, technical and legal profiles. Amongst them were Ethereum core developers, I mean, like very, very talented guys. They worked for 3 years, like in this group where I was. We worked for 3 years just issuing reports for the European Commission on different topics, like data governance, smart contracts. After those 3 years, then the European Commission took the lead to actually draft the text. This is like a regulatory process that I have not seen before in my life. I usually see politicians sitting down, just like bring to mind the AI regulation. This was different. I know MiCA, of course, has improvable points, of course, but I think it's actionable, and from our experience at ATH, we've been managing authorizations since September of last year, and they are working, okay? Let me just say, now answering to your second question, that how good or bad a regulation is depends on 3 different aspects from my point of view. The first one, of course, is the quality of the text. If it's clear, it's clear. If it's not clear, it won't work. The second one is how open to discussions and flexible on criteria are the regulators that need to apply it. And there we have Spanish regulators have been super knowledgeable since 2018. We were the ones doing the first ICO in Spain with them without any sort of legal framework. And the third one is how knowledgeable actually the lawyers who advise the companies are, okay? Now, I would say this last point is where we may have the biggest gap now. And I'm speaking about Spain. Why? Because lawyers, at least in Spain, to be trained in crypto, have to be self-learners. There are no master degrees, universities do not teach blockchain whatsoever. So here's where I think we have the biggest gap. Now, of course, MiCA changes things, and it needs some time to keep going. But Spain is one of the European countries that has already granted authorizations, and we're in April. It's one of the 5 European countries that have already granted authorizations. So that means that it's working. Then I would say we're okay for now.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. You know, I said every crypto company needs a lawyer. You need a good lawyer who understands how to practically apply it. It's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
You know, super critical. Let's switch the conversation to you know, trust and infrastructure. Shirly, you sit at that intersection of privacy and custody. How do you, what does real trust look like in custody today, and how do you think it's evolving, you know, as we go into 2025?
Well, Partisia itself in Latin means distributed trust.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing, what we're focused on. I mean, currently the problem is in data management and in the public blockchain space, how do you balance trust between fully anonymous systems and fully public systems? So I don't think any government or enterprise would build their solution on a fully public blockchain, because you don't have any privacy enhancing technologies in place to comply with the GDPR and data protection rules. So that's what we're solving, where we have a Turing complete MPC technology, which helps to compute on different data whilst keeping it encrypted and confidential, but allowing collaboration between mutually trustful parties. So some of the use cases like we have in Japan is a digital platformer, which enables financial institutions to share financial data across borders and across different institutions, which is currently not possible in a traditional finance. Early on, without any suspicion on fraud or AML or money laundering. So this platform detects fraud and suspicious activity in a much quicker and more effective way. And it's supported by blockchain and privacy-enhancing technologies, and also some AI analysis. So that's by combining the MPC and blockchain, which are both are fully distributed systems, we're achieving this balance and trust in the distributed ledger technology.
Fantastic. Sebastien, one thing I've always loved about Ledger is how true you are to your core principles of putting trust back in the hands of the users and self-custody. As we're seeing more institutional interest and we are seeing the tightening of regulation, how are you evolving your solutions, to answer that, desire from the next generation of users?
Yeah, it's super interesting. And actually talking about, MiCA, one of the things I think that's important is this idea that like self-custody should be like a right, like almost like a human right? You should be able to self-custody your assets wherever you are. And I think that that's in the legislation one way or another. And that should definitely be something that we defend. I think that the way that we've looked at it is to be, this was like the core product, and it was really like in the ethos of the ecosystem, right? Like, the idea of like transparency and Bitcoin networks and so, self-custody was really like a next level of, and I'll say a big word, but it's about freedom, right? It's about like freedom, like owning your things. Like right now, I don't feel that, and I don't know if it's the case in Spain, but more and more it feels that banks are, kind of like, it feels like 1984 once in a while, where they give you a call. I mean, I'll share a personal experience that happened to me last week. My banker calling me, I was in New York. I had like 5 missed calls during the night, and he was asking me that I had to like send proof of like a wire that I had made like last year to my daughter, who's in college. And if I did not answer within 24 hours, they would close down my account. And I was like, what is this? I sent $1,000 to my daughter. So this kind of thing is, like I think taking possibly AML and which is a good thing again, and KYB, etc., or KYC rather, to the extreme and probably to a bad extreme. So recreating this idea that we can be free to do what we want with our money, I think is really important. And then on the institutional side, when we built the enterprise layer for Ledger, it was 5 years ago, and it was really like a demand from, institutional investors, exchanges, custodians actually that are our customers as well, saying, we'd love to do self-custody, but we need a layer of governance on top of it, right? So that's what we built. We built basically the same version of our tool with the same level of security, but with a layer of governance on top of it. And I think that what's interesting is that it enables now people that own like a lot of assets to be able to do more than just custody and actually start doing. We've built like a trading platform that we're working with a bunch of different custodians, exchanges, and asset managers on. We're obviously like putting staking. The idea of saying like, what can you do with your crypto, right? So we did it for consumers. We're now doing it for enterprise. And I think, again, as you see also at Binance and everywhere else, the next wave is an institutional wave. And what we need is to build the right products, the right ramps for institutional players to come in. So you're seeing it with the ETFs. What I think is also super interesting is that we're seeing, things in parallel, right? We're seeing traditional finance take on crypto by building ETFs. So you take an existing product, an existing financial product, but you wrap, crypto into it, and then you put it in the market. What BlackRock did with Badault and Securitize, where you actually take a financial product and put it on the blockchain. So I find all of that like super interesting, and so we try to play our role or our place in that ecosystem. But the convergence between the two, I think, is super interesting because there was so much time, like from 2008 on, where it was like, banks are going to die and crypto is going to take over the world. I don't think that's the right narrative, right? I think it's a narrative that doesn't like take us to and I still see it sometimes at crypto conferences, people saying like banks are dead. Why? I mean, they'll adapt and change. Some will die for sure, but but this idea of convergence between the two ecosystems, I think, is really powerful.
Yeah, I think this is so interesting because what I love about the current landscape we're seeing is not just the acceleration of innovation, but we're creating products for every type of user. So you get to choose based on what's out there. And that convergence of traditional and digital assets is so critical in order to service what is such a broad spectrum. Absolutely. So if you're someone that wants to bank 9 to 5 with your local retailer and go into your teller, you can do that, but you can also bank 24/7, 7 days a week and understand, everything, the transparent nature, of the space.
And when you see Coinbase announcing that they might go for a banking license, et cetera, in the US, that's super interesting, right? It's not saying we're going to get rid of, whatever, Chase or whatever the big banks, but saying, hey, if you want to use your Coinbase account to do everything, on chain, why not?
And I don't mean to offend any traditional bankers in the room, because I know there's a few.
I wasn't trying to do that either.
But I do think crypto's put pressure on that space to innovate and to be user-centric.
Which is good.
The same way we saw in social media with, OTTs, we've seen it in e-commerce. You need to be designed around what your users want. Absolutely. And, this is what users want. Pepe, just to switch to you, Sebastian's touched on some of the kind of evolving needs and the change in needs. I'd love to hear that from your perspective as well.
Regarding the changes, it's very interesting because, as you may know, we are a startup inside a big corporation, right? That's true. We are a few people just working on Prosegur crypto. And the tolerance to failure of the corporation is not for free, it's not infinite, okay? We have to manage that. So, last conversation with the CEO of the company was 2025 is regulation year and integration year. And integration year. 2026 is testing year, and 2027 is revenue year. This is my actual roadmap. It's going to work? I don't know, because let's just say something. Speed depends on the financial institutions, not on us. So that's why we really don't know if this is going to work. And this is how innovation works. I am the innovation guy. I work in innovation since 20 years, and this is how it works. I hope it works. It seems it's going to work, but who knows? But we feel that financial institutions are starting to believe that crypto space is not anymore a dangerous space. That's a thing. And if it's not dangerous space in terms of reputation, in terms of fraud, they are going to be into the business because there are billions inside of business. And this is what we believe is going to happen in this and the next 2 years.
Pepe, that's so interesting. When I first entered into this space, it's about 4.5 years ago now, all of my friends who worked in traditional finance were like, what are you doing? You're blowing up your career. Now those are all the same people that are calling, being like, how can you get us really smart on this space really quickly so we know what to say to our clients? So it's so true, but it's great to hear a long-term view because we do often operate on a very short-term and sprint cycle. Shirly, on the decentralized front, how realistic do you think, or do you even think it's possible to build solutions that are still meaningfully decentralized but also regulated?
Yeah, it is possible, and it's there. We've done it, and it's a way to basically distribute trust and management of keys between different parties, which are all independent, and none of them owns the full share of the data. So it's a secret share of private key management, and it's fully distributed. So the solutions are out there, and I see the movement and transformation over more and more to on-chain advanced custody solutions, moving away from the hardware Because, I mean, from the project perspective, if you're launching a token and you want to get yourself integrated to a custody, it's like a six-figure amount you have to pay annually, and the processing time for onboarding you and integrating you is like a year. So it's extremely difficult. Like there is a very high barrier to get integrated to institutional custody if you want to get exposed to enterprise clients or partners. So what we have is a low barrier, no barrier, open source, fully distributed and decentralized on-chain custody solution, which is actually fully collateralized with our own token for security. So yeah, I can encourage everyone to check out if they're interested to learn more.
So I know there's some builders and creators in the room, and Cristina, we've got potentially free legal advice here. So, how clear do you think, how clearly defined do you think custody is under the MiCA guidance?
So there was a slight change before MiCA and after MiCA. Before MiCA, the concept of custody was fully related to private keys. So if there were no management or backup of private keys, there was no custody. I am a big fan of what I call legal hacking, which means enabling business models for clients, being compliant, but without having to change a lot of things. So we used to say to them, do not back up keys and you're okay, you're not custodians. Now, with MiCA, custody is not only managing or backing up keys, but also having any kind of access to the assets. That means that almost every company in the space will at some point become a custodian. Now, this is where I bring again the concept of lawyers and regulators, because in Spain at least, when you're a custodian just in the moment where you're executing a transaction, you're not under the scope of MiCA. So that sort of like temporary custody will be out of the scope of MiCA. That's super. I mean, that's a way of enabling innovation. Other regulators consider that even that temporary custody will need an authorization. That means that we're now having, so now that institutional investors are coming into the picture, and companies are now willing to see if they can actually do something in the space, this temporary custodian thing can actually be a stopper or an enabler. And in Spain, it's an enabler. And we're seeing real estate agencies, we're seeing financial institutions, we're seeing regulated companies of financial services coming into the space because these sort of tiny little things that are super important are in their favor. So I would say that custody, at least here in Spain, is super clear, and it's being applied in a way that it can actually mean a game changer for companies.
Fantastic. I think we can all agree at this table, and we're lucky enough to spend some time with you guys before, that collaboration is key in terms of moving this industry forward, and no single player is going to be able to achieve it without the support and engaging in meaningful dialogue and action with each other. But as you look at the current landscape and the current conversations that you're involved in, I'm going to open this up to each of you to finish. What do you think is missing between the conversations with traditional institutions and the crypto native infrastructure? And I know we've got a mix of people in this room, so I'm hoping that will be something that they take away.
I mean, I think it's about, a lot of it is about communication. The example that you gave of like your friends calling you out 4 years after, I think is dead on. It's like, I think what I'm seeing, and which I think is a positive, is a lot of the big banks, be it in the US, I see them in France as well, I'm sure it happens in Spain also, all have some level of project around crypto when 3 or 4 years ago they wouldn't like touch it. And I think that's what you need, right? They need, and to your point on lawyers, they need to self-learn. It's the same thing, right? They need to hire people who are going to be, either know the space or are super interested in the space to create that. And it's all about communication, really, and learning, right? And having an open mind. So I'm seeing it happen. It's taking some time because, as you know, like big companies take time also to do this. But like, what you've done at Prosegur is like a perfect example of like, how it can happen, right? And you have crypto native people within the companies, and that creates like the link.
Can I say the same? No, just to clarify a little bit the thing, when I speak with financial institutions, they have two parts. One is the financial institution has no idea about crypto, no idea. I don't know, what are you talking about to me? Second is, yes, we have a blockchain practice, and they have technical guys, which is good, but they don't have business guys, business partners on crypto. This is what the banks and financial institutions need, because the technical guys are good. They are going to implement the integration, the things, which is very important. This custody by design is very good, but how can we do a business from this? Is blockchain an enabler of new businesses or not? This is the key things that the banks are missing, in my opinion.
What is missing? I always say freaks. We're missing more freaks. And this comes alongside with what we are still missing is information and interest. I super agree with you where you said that not only in business, in financial institutions, in law firms, what we're missing is people actually being interested on what's happening in this side of the ecosystem, in actually playing with technology and asking questions. Because what I myself, my mother, when I told her I was leaving my position at a big law firm for crypto, she was like, I'm not paying your bailout, okay? Now she invests in Bitcoin. Why? Because she's asked me things, I've told her. This is the conversations I think are taking place now, but we used to have them, them 5 years ago. So I always say that usually like the mainstream is asking crypto for things that cannot happen so quickly. We're super fast. We're now a new digital asset class. And that's happened in what, 10 years? That's super. But we need to have like a bit more patience. We need to see the regulation just consolidating and people actually asking questions and others being able to answer it. If that doesn't take place, then maybe we're gonna slow things down.
Yeah, from my side, I have now basically 7-8 years that I've been viewing the custodian landscape and the infrastructure that you're using. And what I'm seeing is this kind of similarity with traditional finance, where banks are operating on infrastructure that is like from 70s, and they're super afraid to move over to innovative technologies like blockchain and so on. And it's happening, the same problem is in custody space. Like once they settle with a certain infrastructure provider, for the custody solution, they're not eager to look out for what are the new innovative ways or even more secure ways, because we're seeing a lot of hacks, like we saw the Bybit hack, which is because of the custody solution. So I would eager the players out there to look out for more innovation and secure solutions and be more open to move over to more advanced solutions.
Fantastic. I think I love the commonality in the responses there, because I think it's really clear in order to win with the next generation of users, whether retail or institutions, we need more active listing, we need more education, we definitely need more freaks, but then at the same time we need more translators, on that traditional side in order to be able to encourage and remove the blockers and the barriers to build that next generation infrastructure. And we need to do that in order to keep this pace of this acceleration. Because as we know, it's very easy to put those blockers up that slow that down. And I don't think anyone on the crypto native side of the block wants that to happen. I just want to say, I could sit here all day. I just want to say a huge thank you to each of you. And a big thank you again to the Ibiza Tech Forum for having us in what is one of the most beautiful locations I've been for a conference. For sure. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.